By the mid-2030s, sea levels will have risen so much that the moon's regular, predictable cycles will be the catalyst for rapidly increasing high tide floods on almost all U.S. mainland coastlines, Hawaii and Guam. That's the stark conclusion of research published in Nature Climate Change from NASA's Sea Level Change Science team from the University of Hawaii. It states that the increase would be mostly along the continental Pacific, Pacific Island and Gulf of Mexico coastlines. By the mid-2030s, high tide floods will switch from being a regional problem to a major national issue, it concludes, though with the caveat that fluctuations in local sea levels may affect the exact timing on the onslaught. The moon's gravitational pull causes the low and high tides each day here on Earth because the oceans bulge on the moon side. However, the moon has an 18.6-year cycle during which its wobbling position suppresses high tides for one half and amplifies them for the other half. It's doing the former right now, but climate change-induced sea levels haven't risen enough for there to be a sharp increase in high tide floods just yet, also called nuisance floods or sunny day floods. That's going to change. When we get to a similar point in the moon's cycle in the mid-2030s, climate change will have worsened and sea levels will have risen. That's because rising sea levels will suddenly be in alignment with the lunar cycle and cause a decade of dramatic increases in flood numbers. It's pretty bad already in many cities on the U.S. Atlantic and Gulf coasts, says the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, which reported over 600 high tide floods in 2019. In the mid-2030s there will be high tides that exceed known flooding thresholds around the country more often, and for weeks on end. This first study to take into account all known oceanic and astronomical causes for floods predict that the floods will sometimes occur in seasonal clusters lasting a month or longer. Understanding that all your events are clustered in a particular month, or you might have more severe flooding in the second half of a year than the first, that's useful information, said Ben Hamlington of NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, co-author of the paper and the leader of NASA's Sea Level Change team. The researchers studied 89 tide gauge locations in every coastal U.S. state and territory but Alaska, projecting results to 2080. After all, we're not talking here about hurricane storm surges and physical damage of property and infrastructure. It's the accumulated effect over time of things like road and business closures that could be devastating. If it floods 10 or 15 times a month, a business can't keep operating with its parking lot underwater, said Phil Thompson, an assistant professor at the University of Hawaii and the lead author of the study. People lose their jobs because they can't get to work, and seeping cesspools become a public health issue.